Erin from the Rooted family. I'm so happy to have Kara here with me today. If you are not a member of the Rooted Family Circle, well, then you don't know that we're talking healthy bodies. You can join us if you go to therootedfamily.com and click on the Rooted Family Circle. You can join us this month and learn about healthy brains and healthy bodies. And if you are a member of the Rooted Family Circle, then you probably already started all your journals with your kids and learned about mindful eating and the brain research behind the gut and brain connection. Really, they call the gut in your stomach your second brain, with your heart being in there too. But I will say sometimes it's the first brain, because Kara and I were just sort of talking about brains and what they do. But your mood is really, really influenced by what you eat, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have Kara here today, because 90% of your serotonin, that's that happy, feel-good neurotransmitter, is actually produced in your gut. So what you eat, when they say you are what you eat, it's actually really true, especially when it comes to your mood. How you feel and your emotions attached to it are really, really strung together between the gut and brain connection. And the other reason I wanted to have Kara on today is because there is so much anxiety and fear and stress out there right now. And they're all about things that are unknown to us. There's a bunch of unknowns in this world right now. A lot of them have to do with our kids and going back to school or not going back to school, or what does that look like, and balancing our home life. So instead of focusing on the things we cannot control, I wanted this month for the Rooted Family Circle and for everybody who's following us to really look at what we can control and what our kids and family are eating that influence their brain and influence their moods and their emotions. That is something we can control. And when we focus on things we can control, we gain resiliency and confidence in what we're doing. And we hopefully gain a sense of gratitude too for just what this world has to give. So we are focused on healthy eating. So I'm going to welcome Kara. Hello, Kara.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And Kara has an amazing program out right now called we're talking about how to avoid making food an issue, but she has the Adventurous Eater, right? Tell me how to raise an adventurous eater.
Yes, you are exactly right. You got it. There's a lot there to remember.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the course, and then tell us what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so I'm a registered dietitian. I focus on family and childhood nutrition, and I just released a course because I was having families reach out to me, but then also I just wanted to reach more families that I can't actually reach one-to-one like all the time. And so this course is something that's available for families. If you have a picky eater, if you're worried that they're not eating enough, if they're worried about eating too much, not sure how to handle food just in general with your kids, this is a great course. I would say it's between ages from 2 all the way up to when you're kind of like, okay, we're good now, but maybe by 10, 12, that's probably when you're probably good. But this course is great, just gives you a lot of background. And so today and this week, actually, we're just going to be covering a little bit of snapshots of what's in the course, just to get you a taste and to help you out, get you started. But then also that course will just dive in even more on what I cover. So yeah. I'm really excited about how it all came together.
One of the things I love that you told me about this course that I think is so helpful is that you get it forever. So once you purchase it, it's yours forever. And we all know as our kids change, so do their eating habits also change. So this is sort of just like, here's your components, but you might look at them from a different parenting lens as your kids move through. So I love that you have it. So that way you can always reference it. When you get to that and you're like, oh, what did Kara say about that? You can just pop right back in and find out.
Right. Yeah. And there's action steps after each lesson. So it's just a good way to like, okay, now that I learned the information, what do I even do with it? And so you can go and actually apply like, okay, now I know the steps to take in order to actually incorporate this in. And yeah, really the information is good even for adults. Like we need to remember this mentality and being an intuitive eater, that's all what it's about. And so as kids, they're already intuitive eaters. They listen to their hunger level. They eat when they're hungry. They stop when they're satisfied. As adults, we lose that ability. And so I feel like it can be applied in many different areas of our life. So yeah, you get it forever and there's always lessons being added which is nice because then you can always go back and find new things there that you can get.
That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about our topic today. We are here all week, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're going to be tackling a different topic, but today we're going to talk about how to avoid making food an issue. So Kara, tell us, because I think we've had so many parent battles with what kids are eating and when they're eating and how they're eating. I mean, right down to, are they going to sit in the chair? Are they going to walk around the house with whatever they're eating and just eat it? And so tell us, how do we avoid making it an issue?
Yeah, so this is really just kind of an overarching look, because you have this time where you spent this time making the food and you set on the table and like your kids are just like, I don't want to eat this, or they're just making a fuss, or they're not interested in the food, they're not even eating it, they're maybe playing with it, all these things that can be going on. And a lot of times we think, oh, they don't like the food. So you think, I need to change the food, I need to make something different about it. But sometimes it's really not even about the food. Oftentimes it's rarely about the food, actually. And so we just need to keep that in mind. It's just kind of a good way to start us off for the week, of really recognizing that. A lot of times we forget that it's not necessarily the food that's causing the problem. It's something else that's going on with your toddler or your child, your teen. There's lots of issues and things that they're dealing with. And sometimes that comes to the table thinking, and we think that it's the food, but it's really not. So not making that food the issue, recognizing that at 2 to 3, 4 years age, they're learning their independence. And I think that's a key thing to remember. At this age, they're thinking, okay, I can say no, and there's a reaction. So I can say, I don't want this. And if you then go and say, oh, okay, I'll give you something different, that's when they think, oh, okay, I get a reaction and I get something that I want. So I'm going to continue doing that. And so if you really just don't make food an issue of being like, okay, you don't have to eat it, that's fine, really staying neutral about it, you kind of just, again, stay calm, and you let that issue go by without really drawing attention to it, you'll have a much better success later on. Just long term. In the immediate, you might find like, oh, if I give my child something different, they'll eat something. So that's good, but that's the short-term effect. We're looking more at wanting to improve the long-term effect. So really just recognizing it's the independence. It could be they're not feeling well, they're not hungry. We often forget that they maybe had all their calories that they needed earlier in the day. And because kids are so intuitive, if they're not hungry, they're not going to eat. So by dinner time, they're like, I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat anything. Or they're not feeling well. So all kinds of things that can result in them not eating, and it's not necessarily about the food.
So what are some key words or phrases if you're trying to have your child sit at the dinner table and eat dinner with you, and they've declared that they're not eating it, and whatever you made is going to be gross and they can't stomach it, and you can feel the escalation happening at the table. You're getting upset, they're upset, they've dug their heels in. So what are some key phrases you can use so that you are avoiding an issue with food?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the main things is remaining calm. So the tone of your voice, even if you're saying the exact same thing, can make a huge impact. So you could say, that's okay, you don't have to eat it. Or, that's okay, you don't have to eat it. And that tone makes a big difference on how your child takes that. And so just remaining neutral. So that's okay, you don't have to eat it, but you have to stay here with the rest of the family while we finish our meal. So making sure that they still are a part of that table. And eventually, if you're not drawing attention to the food, they're more likely to maybe nibble at it or play with the food at least, and it's still an exposure. Because if they're not even at the table, they're not getting an exposure, which defeats the whole purpose anyway. Right. Another idea is you could say, how can I make this yummier for you? So if they are truly hungry, but maybe it just looks different than what they're used to, or they need a dip, maybe they need a little bit of ranch, or they need some ketchup, or they need it cut up differently. It may just be they don't have the words to say why they don't like it, but you just ask, okay, how can I make this yummier for you? They may be like, they say, oh, something needs to be different about it. And then they enjoy it. So that's something in mind. One thing that I just thought of is if you've ever had a kid that they really love, one day they're eating blueberries, they're going to town on it, and then the next day they don't even touch the blueberries. That's also a sign. That doesn't mean that they don't all of a sudden don't like blueberries. it goes back to that, either they're not hungry or they're recognizing that independence. And so just leaving it at that, again, saying, that's okay. You don't have to eat it today. We'll try again another time. So.
Yeah, and I wonder too, intuitively, if their bodies know that they've absorbed those nutrients. So their body's not in need of whatever the nutrients that it's supplying.
Yeah.
So in that, especially when not so much unhealthy food, but when it comes to healthy food, because you do have kids that you go out to the store and you buy 12 tubs of blueberries because you're like, yes, they're eating blueberries. And then the next day they're like, and I'm done with blueberries. But I just wonder, is that something where they're nutritionally, their bodies have what they need right there?
Yeah, definitely. So there's times where they'll go in like called food jags, where they kind of just latch on and eat the same thing for a while. But then again, their bodies are going to recognize, same with us, like if we're having a lot of fruit and then all of a sudden I'm like, I need some protein. Or your body just starts craving what it doesn't have and it needs a little bit more of. And so the same with the kids. Yeah, for sure. They might really go to town. You might think, wow, they're eating all this fruit. If you allow them to listen to their body and eat that fruit, eventually then they'll go and not even touch the fruit, and they'll then go on to eat whatever, the chicken or whatever you have, or the vegetables maybe. So yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes it's just listening to their body and like they really needed that, but then they're good. They need to have something else after that. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that used to be a real frustration when I had smaller kids, because I would go out and try and get the healthy things that they really like to eat. And then when they, or I know this is a lot of moms, if you go out to Costco and you buy the giant size of whatever it is, and everybody, when they used to have samples, would do the sample and they're like, oh, we love it, we'll eat it all. And then they eat like 2 things out of the box or the bag. And you're like, why did I spend this amount of money? And now the only person who's going to eat it is me, because somebody's got to eat it. So
right.
I think that is something to keep in mind about, they might have satisfied whatever that nutritional need was.
Right. And then the key thing too is, just because they didn't eat it one time or another time, to continue to offer it. I think that's the main thing. As a parent, we're in charge of what we serve our child. So just because a lot of times I hear, oh, my kid won't eat these things, so I just serve these 3 foods or these 3 vegetables or fruit. But if you don't offer it, they're not going to eat what they don't get. And so they can't even, if they're not even seeing it, of course they're not going to eat it because they haven't even had the opportunity. And so stick with it, even if it's foods that they've loved, if it's foods that they haven't loved, continue to, it can take multiple exposures. You've always heard, okay, multiple exposures, but it really does take 10, 20 plus exposures. And even just seeing it, smelling it, playing with it, that's an exposure. They don't have to actually eat it to make it count. Just being able to see it all the time and offering in new ways. So the blueberries on oatmeal, the blueberries in muffins, blueberries on top of pancakes or something. So offering it in different ways can also help as well, kind of introduce it, and maybe it makes it more appealing for them.
Yeah, I like that phrase, how can I make it more yummy? I think that's a great way to, to avoid those conflicts at the table. If they're always happening when you're coming to the table, sort of what you were saying, when we have all these tubs of blueberries, maybe before the table saying, here, we have all these blueberries, what would you like to help me make? Or what could we make together so that we're using up some of these blueberries? And then it's not the choice of food, blueberry or no blueberry, it's how are we going to use the blueberries. So you've actually changed the choice for them so that they do feel empowered to make healthy choices for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's also kind of goes in, this is a little side thing of, a lot of times we say, what do you want for breakfast? Or what do you want for lunch? And that's like so many options. Like even for me, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Right.
But instead, and then we're taking that control. We're not then deciding what we should serve our child. It's the child is then deciding that. So instead we could say, do you want blueberry muffins or blueberry pancakes? So they still have that option or that decision to make, but it's limited for them. So
yeah. Well, I don't know if you can see, but we have a question for us. So it says, is there a proper balance with liquids versus solids in a meal? My husband gets frustrated that a specific child will drink 2 big glasses of milk, but not eat as much food as he would have anticipated. Ooh, this is a good question, because I'm so excited to hear your answer, Carol, because at my house too, if somebody's slugging down milk or whatever, I have them slow down, because then they at my house, they don't eat as much. So I'm excited to hear your answer on this.
Yeah, no, that's great. Excellent question, Evie. I like it a lot. So that's I would say for kids, it is recommended to limit how much milk. We want to make sure that they're getting an adequate amount. So I think 24 ounces, I'll look into that and I can get back to you, but I think 24 ounces in a day is a recommendation for kids. Otherwise, we will see that they're starting to eat less food because they're intuitive eaters, they're not as hungry. And so they can start to not eat as much food because they've already filled up on milk. And so just being aware of how much milk they're eating it throughout or drinking throughout the day is important. But then also keep in mind, as a parent, we're in charge of serving the food and the drinks, but the child then is in charge of how much and whether or not they're going to eat or drink. So that's where that balance kind of comes in, of offering the milk in a variety of foods. And the key thing there is, if they are asking for more milk, you could either say, we don't have enough milk for this meal, or we're going to save the milk for later, but don't say if they can't have any more milk, because I think that takes away their responsibility of deciding what to eat or how much to eat, if that makes sense. So it's conflicting a little bit. So being mindful of how much milk they get. Again, you don't have to serve milk at every meal either. So that's another way of allowing them to have milk when you're offering it and not restricting it. But then also, because you're in charge of what you serve for each meal, maybe for lunch or for breakfast, they don't have milk at those meals, so that you know that they're not getting too much milk throughout the day. So hopefully that helps give you a little bit of idea of maybe how to handle that a little bit more, but really keeping in mind of that division of responsibility. So like, you're in charge of what you serve, and then your child then is deciding how much they're going to be eating or drinking, if that's something that you're serving at that meal.
Yeah, I will say in my house, and Kara, you can give me your opinion on this, but we just have one specific child that would do that, drink a lot of milk and then not eat anything. So we just do water. We all have just water. And then once they've eaten a substantial amount or eaten some, then it's kind of like dessert milk. Like, they can go get a glass of milk when they've made some progress. And they usually tell us, like, I ate half the meal, or I had a good, and they monitor that. I actually usually forget about the milk situation, and then they'll be like, well, I ate all of this. Can I go get the milk now? And I'm like, oh yeah, go for it. But I pour water at the beginning, and it took maybe a couple days, but then once we just knew everybody was having water until we got some bites in. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that definitely works. I think that goes in line with, you don't have to serve milk at every meal, or you can choose, milk is really an issue and they're not eating as well, so we're going to have water for this meal. Because again, kids, as much as I love milk and I think it's great, they actually you don't need to have milk in order to have a well-balanced diet, as long as you're getting calcium and protein from other sources. Milk is great, but we don't have to have it every single meal if they're doing fine. So that's great. You can always have water too.
Yeah.
Or offer it later for like a dessert. That's totally fine.
If there's such a thing, that's how it rolls in our house. Well,
or a snack too.
Snack, yep. Snack time would be a great time, because usually the snack time is not, hopefully they're as healthy of foods, but usually they're less healthy than whatever you're serving at the meal. So that might be a good one to say, like, there's where you can have all your milk, because at least I know you're getting healthy milk then. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kara, so much for being with us. So if you want, like I said, we're just doing little snippets of Kara's course, how to raise an adventurous eater. So if you want more information, it's scrolling right at the bottom. Head to her website. If you want to really focus on this, because this is something you can control, you can control healthy eating and healthy exercise in your family, you can join the Rooted Family Circle for healthy brains, healthy bodies. If you're already a member, this is here all week just to give you a boost in what you're doing and helping your kids. And Kara and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Kara, thank you for being with us so much today.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you. If anybody has extra questions, stick them in the comments below, and Kara and I will be checking in, and we'll go ahead and try and answer those for you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.